Hey, good afternoon to you. 306 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, Julie Kelly is here. We'll talk to her about that crazy New York judge who is trying to throw Donald Trump in jail before the election. He says, we'll save it until after the election. Yeah, that'll be good for us. We'll talk to Julie Kelly about that, what she makes of that chaos. And then Tom Bevan from Real Clear Politics is here at 4:30. How frequently do you check that website for the latest polling data? Well, Tom will synthesize everything for us and let us know about the state of the race right now at 4:30. And then at 5:30, one of our WMAL colleagues here, Matt Walsh, he can be heard here each evening on the station. He's here to talk about his new movie, Am I Racist? We'll help him on his journey coming up at 5:30. Don't miss that interview and buy your tickets for that great movie. And you can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. My thanks, as always, to the great Corey and Ganamore for all the help he gives us on the show, but in particular for hosting on Friday in my stead. I had to be out Friday, and the reports I'm hearing are that Corey did so well that nobody wants me back. So no more Corey guest hosting. That's the conclusion from all of that. No, thank you, Corey, very much for that. So the news, the reason I was out Friday was because I was getting laser eye surgery. I had LASIK done on Friday. All of my whole life, I've had glasses. As long as I've really been able to do anything, go out anywhere, toddle a little bit. I've had glasses most of my life and contacts at times, but I needed glasses to assist my vision. And I would take them off for vision. I hate glasses. I don't like what they look like. I don't like them. But I wear them because I have to, right? Up until this past weekend, needed to. And so if you ever see me on television or if you ever see me do interviews, normally I just whip the glasses off. I just never like having them on. So I take them off to do the interview. So long as I don't have to stare at anything, like if they're not showing me something on screen that I've got to look at, I'm good, But my vision was crappy. I would stand I would stand kind of in a parking lot right on the sidewalk, and I'd be looking at the cars in the parking lot, and I couldn't read the license plates without the assistance of glasses. The numbers I couldn't make out. So I needed help. And on Friday, I went to Tyson's Corner to a place called Holzman Laser Vision, and Dr. Andrew Holzman's there, and he just is the best. I mean, it is unreal. You're going to hear me talk a lot more about him coming up because we have a relationship we're going to grow out of all this. But I have to say, what a weird experience, but what a totally rewarding one. You go in with some trepidation. You're like, oh my goodness, they're going to shoot lasers into my eyes. And I was really playing it up with my kid, my 10-year-old. I was like, yeah, who knows how this is going to go? And just unnecessarily freaking her out, to my wife's dismay. And it's just fun. If you're going to be a dad, you should pick on your children. But I go in Friday, and it is a quick thing. It's a quick procedure. We had planned it out a little bit ago, a couple weeks ago. I got there Friday, and it was just an awesome experience. It was funny because I got a call from a call made its way to me from a gentleman called Jay Rosenberg, great guy who he's kind of handles a lot of the advertising arrangements for these guys at Holzman Laser Vision. And they asked, can we film it? Can we film your surgery? I was like, film it? Yeah, okay, whatever. I'm down for anything. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. So they had a camera there, and I wore a microphone. And my whole experience, from the moment I walked in to the moment I left, was all captured on camera, all of it. And of course, I agreed to it ahead of time. I didn't sign anything, though, so maybe I can cause some trouble for them. But I go in there, and they tape all of this, and the goal is to use it for, some sort of advertising, I think, of course. And I go in, and it's 10 minutes. 10 minutes for both of my eyes. 10 minutes. And it was wonderful. Dr. Holzman and his great team, they just did amazing things for me. And by the end of the surgery, right after it, you can instantly see, better. I'm looking around. It's a little hazy because you're recovering from it. By the next morning, it was it's basically perfect now. I went in for a follow-up appointment the following day, Saturday. I go in. Dr. Holzman was there. His dog, Charlie, beautiful golden retriever, hanging out with us. We sat down, we did a vision test, and he said, "You're 2015." 2015. So that's an amazing thing. So I've been using my eyes a lot this past weekend. Like you do. You use your eyes. I was using my eyes. I went out with my dog last night. My dog Major, no relation to Biden's dog Major. And I like going out in the yard with Major, and I'm Major's wingman. When I open the door for Major, usually we do it together slowly. I quietly open the door because I know there's typically wildlife in my backyard. And Major will stalk his way out the door in preparation for chasing said wildlife. He'll move really slowly. His paws move at a glacial pace while he's surveying the land, looking for these animals. And sure enough, he locks onto a rabbit last night, and he takes off running after this thing. I've got my flashlight out, and I'm watching in practically 4K clarity as my dog is running this rabbit down like he's a Haitian in Ohio trying to capture an animal. No, I'll get to that story. Yeah, I see a lot of people talking about the Haitians in Ohio. That town in Ohio, Springfield, Ohio, a town of 58,000 people as of 2 years ago, the population of Springfield, Ohio, they have added 20,000 Haitian migrants in the last 2 years. 20,000. Before we get to whether or not the animals are being eaten, let's just start with the screaming headline. 20,000 foreigners have joined a community of just 58,000 natives of Springfield, Ohio. That seems like a big deal. Doesn't it seem like a big deal to you? It's a huge deal. And it's being duplicated all over the country thanks to Biden and Kamala. So anyway, the point to all of this is I am over the moon about my eyes. I'm so happy that I'm able to see with such clarity. I marvel at this technology. I'm a Catholic, and I was at Mass this weekend, and each of the readings had references to people having their sight restored or their hearing restored. And when they're in the sight restoration lines, I was nudging my wife. I was like, my sight was restored this week. My sight, by the grace of God and the blessing of Dr. Holzman and his team. Really, really amazing. And it wasn't that long ago that in all of human history, you could not have conceived of the ability to do this. In all of human history. The idea that you could have your vision corrected inside of your head to the point that I'm now seeing 2015? Never. And that's where we are now. So very cool. I also got to use my eyes today for a wild experience. I sometimes when I'm on my way to the studio here in Friendship Heights in Washington, D.C., before I get here, I will occasionally stop at Rodman's grocery store, which is a family-run grocery store that's been here for many decades. In that location, it's been there for, I believe, I want to say it's almost 60 years now. It's been there. And it's a great place. It's a great location. And it's just, it's such a nice place. It's like nice staff. And it's a grocery store. They sell all sorts of stuff, but they sell booze. And I like browsing bourbon. I like checking out the bourbon collection. So I was in there today looking at the bourbon before yes, I know. It was the middle of the day. But I wanted to see if there was anything unique or interesting, as I often do. So I was in there, and I found a bottle. I was like, this is perfect. And I grabbed it, and I was ready to head to the register when a young man comes whooshing past me. I'm the only one standing there by the bourbons because, of course, it's like the morning. So this guy comes blowing past me, young man, black guy, short dreads, wearing a backpack. And I said, oh, sorry, pardon me. I thought I was in his way. I was like, let me get out of your way here. He didn't say anything to me at all. He didn't even acknowledge that I said anything. I was like, that's weird. It felt strange. So I'm kind of walking now away from the liquor area, and all of a sudden I hear over the PA system, security to liquor. Sir, do not put those bottles in your backpack. This is over the PA system. They're watching them apparently on camera. And I'm like, oh crap. This is what's so now I hear bottle after bottle, clink, 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 just bottles being thrown into this backpack. And by this point, a bunch of the staff begin descending on the liquor section. All the men of the store start heading towards the liquor section to confront this guy. And you hear one of them say, sir, Get that out of your backpack now. Just basically giving a direct order. He ignores them, and he zips up the bag. He says, stay away from me. He pushes past these guys. He whips around, and he takes out a small container of mace, and he begins spraying mace in their direction. Like just little sprays of it. Get away from me, get away from me. And he heads towards the door, firing maybe one or two more blasts of mace, and then he's out the door. Now, of course, I'm watching all of this with my new eyes. And what I'm thinking, I'm like, well, don't get mace in your eyes, stupid. Dr. Halsman's going to be like, how the hell did you get mace in your eyes already? Your brand new eyes. Don't do that. Okay. I just don't think that'd be good. I don't think it'd be medically helpful for me to have mace sprayed into my eyes. So I like a lot of people, I take out my phone and I begin capturing images, video actually, of everything going down. And I get a really clear shot of the guy, a really, really clear shot of the guy. And I gave it to the store because they chase him out the door. And this is awful. This is happening all over Washington, D.C. I just happened to be there as this guy's robbing them, stealing their booze. And he goes out the door. One of the employees, who I know, chases this guy down the street, apparently. And the guy jumps in his car and takes off. And as he was leaving, he was out in front of Rodman's grocery store. He apparently hits another vehicle, another moving car on the street, sideswipes it, and takes off. So now we've got a hit and run situation in addition to everything else. And who knows if the cops are going to be able to figure out where this guy is or what's going on. But I did give the image to Rodman's, like I said, the video, so they have something to provide to the police officers. And I made my way over here to tell my friends and colleagues what the hell's happening. I was like, this is crazy. This is crazy. And Rodman's, it's not the first time they've had to experience this, Rodman's grocery store in Friendship Heights. It wasn't long, in 2020, they had their windows smashed out. In 2020, remember, it was May 31st of 2020, the night of chaos in Washington, D.C., as all these places were being robbed and stuff was being stolen. And the family back then, you can look up, there's old USA Today articles, they said that they slept in the store to protect it in the nights that came. So in each night, as people would case it, they drive up with their car, try and check because, it's a grocery store. Maybe they've got stuff we could steal. They were mindlessly stealing stuff, I should point out. They were stealing pharmacy supplies. They were just grabbing anything they could off of shelves and running. So Rodman's, the guys, they were all inside. They all had their flashlights, and they would point them out the windows just to let people know there are people inside with flashlights shining into their eyes, and people would move on. And finally, the National Guard made itself present, and things got a little bit better ever since. But just awful, just awful. So there you go. So that was why I was out Friday. I was getting eye surgery Friday. It went great. Thank you for asking, and thank you to the people who knew for their prayers. It's always nice. And today I got to use those eyes to witness a robbery right here in Washington, D.C., and we're off and running. I do have a lot to get to today with you, including Kamala Harris's debate prep is ongoing in Pittsburgh. She visited a communist spice shop on Saturday, to appeal to the broad American middle. She was hanging out with the commies. And what else is going on? Oh, yeah, Springfield, Ohio reports that the local wildlife are being consumed by the new arrivals. What? There are people eating Canada geese or something? What is happening here? I think I had a Joe Biden moment or something. Kamala Harris. It's not conversational white geese. What you're thinking of is swans, Vince. You're thinking of swans. Fancy geese. They say that the locals in Springfield, well, they're not even locals. They're foreigners who are living in Springfield, Ohio, are apparently eating all the animals. Now, the local media outlets are insisting that it's not true. At least one local newspaper, the Springfield News-Sun. Springfield police say no reports of pets stolen after viral social media post. I don't know. Here's a recent Springfield City Commission meeting where a local resident of Springfield, Ohio, insists that the Haitians are eating all the animals.
I really challenge you guys to get out here and do something. These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into... they flipping cars in the middle of the street. I don't know how, y'all can be comfortable with this. I don't know, who's getting paid from it. I honestly feel like someone's getting paid from it in the background. You got a bunch of people on a bus getting dropped off at a gas station to come down here. I know a single mom that FaceTimed me this morning at the welfare office that really need something. And it's nothing but immigrants over there. And I don't even want to seem like I'm coming down on the immigrants, because it's the people that's bringing them down here. Because wherever they're at, that's what they're used to, bro. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them like.
Oh my good. And then of course, we're getting all these reports that now cats are being eaten, dogs are being eaten. Now, people are saying all sorts of things. I've seen the memes running wild. Donald Trump, the protector of small animals. I see lots of memes going around of him carrying all the animals to safety. I hope they're not eating dogs in Springfield, Ohio. Don't do that. Can you imagine? There was an entire movie about one guy who had his dog killed, and then he takes it out on all of his enemies. He hunts all of them down. It's called John Wick. They made a series of movies about this. Imagine creating an entire community of John Wicks. All these people trying to avenge the deaths of their animals at the hands of the invaders that the Biden administration welcomed in with open arms. Now, again, as I mentioned, the local news is saying, well, the cops don't show any evidence that pets are being stolen. Okay, but let me just back up to the headline here. 20,000 new foreigners have just poured into a community of 58,000 people. And there's a big report today in the Washington Times, excellent newspaper, about how the parole program that the Biden administration has been using to bring in so many people, to include a lot of Haitians, is rife with fraud. Well, it turns out people are lying about their need for, quote, parole. They're lying about the sponsors they have in the United States to bring them in. It turns out it's all a scam. But it's overwhelming American communities. That's true. That is happening in Springfield, Ohio. We'll tell you more coming up. Julie Kelly will be with us just minutes away. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 3:35 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up, Tom Bevan from Real Clear Politics is here at 4:30. Matt Walsh is here, host of the Matt Walsh Show. He's got a new movie out, Am I Racist? Debuts in theaters September 13th. We'll talk to him about that again at 5:30. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Judge Juan Merchan is a total pain in the butt. And he's a tyrant, too, up in New York. And we were expecting President Trump to be sentenced in the ridiculous so-called hush money trial on September 18th. That would be 9 days from today. But on Friday, so as to let the left down easily, of Friday news dump, Juan Merchan ruled that we are going to push the sentencing back to November 26th. That puts it past the election. Merchan saying, quote, the imposition of sentence will be adjourned to avoid any appearance, however unwarranted, that the proceeding has been affected by or seeks to affect the approaching presidential election in which the defendant is a candidate. No, we wouldn't want to do that, would we? Make people think that this entire trial had something to do with the election. Julie Kelly joins us now. She's the author of the Declassified by Julie Kelly Substack and the book January 6th, How Democrats Used the Capitol Protest to Launch a War on Terror Against the Political Right. Julie, good to have you back with us.
Hey, Vince. Good to hear from you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. All right. So Judge Juan Merchan, he says, I don't want to be political. I don't want people to think I'm trying to influence the election. I'll sentence Trump after the election. What do you think?
Interesting, right? Well, a couple of things here. 2 days before the sentencing, Vince, Juan Merchan was going to issue an order related to the Supreme Court's ruling in the immunity question, where, as you and I have discussed, the Supreme Court came back and established basically 3 buckets of immunity where a president would be immune from his acts in office. And this goes to the J6 case indictment, Jack Smith indictment against Donald Trump for the events of January 6th. Well, the alleged conduct for which Donald Trump was convicted in the Bragg case happened when he was in office. So he was president during this timeline of the Bragg indictment and prosecution. So this again raised more immunity questions. So Judge Merchan on September 16th, all by his lonesome, he wasn't going to confer with any experts or get even DOJ's opinion on this. He was just going to rule single-handedly as to whether there was any immunity implications in this conviction. And of course there are. Not only was Donald Trump president, they used communications with him and his communications director, Hope Hicks. There was testimony by other White House employees about Donald Trump's activities, his schedule, his routine in office. All of that would be immune from prosecution, not just in trial, but none of this would be allowed during the investigation. So the whole case and prosecution and conviction is tainted right now. So he was going to come back on September 16th and probably say, no, the Supreme Court immunity ruling does not relate to this prosecution. This is all private, personal conduct. But what would happen then, Vince, is because it's immunity, it automatically goes to appeal, something called interlocutory appeal, which is one of these rare occasions where something can be appealed before a trial. So September 16th, he would have come back with that, and then everything would have been suspended anyway. Now he gets to look like, oh, I'm being magnanimous, I'm being cautious about the election. All of a sudden, I don't want to interfere in the presidential election. So I'm going to vacate the sentencing date, postpone it until after the election. But there were a lot more motives behind the scenes about what he did there.
Interesting. So what that means is that the state of the case was very perilous in terms of it continuing to exist.
Yeah.
And so Juan Merchan punts because, let's be honest, he is a political actor. And he wants to leave in the eyes of the public, this idea that Donald Trump is some sort of criminal. He wants that to be hanging over President Trump. And what you're pointing out, Julie Kelly, is that this case could have been thrown out on its head if Juan Merchan was actually doing his job correctly.
Right. I mean, if he would have come back on September 16th, and of course this has been vacated as well, and said, yes, there are immunity implications in this conviction. We need to take a step back. We need to revisit the conviction. We need to see what elements, according to the Supreme Court, are covered by presidential immunity.
Yeah.
Redo the case from the very beginning. He wasn't going to do that, right? Because we've already seen this guy in action for over 2 years. So he wasn't going to do that. He was going to come back and say that these were personal private acts,
Yes.
not covered. But again, triggering that appeal, the whole thing would have been suspended anyway. So this is more just performance by Juan Merchan.
I mean, that adds a lot of important context. I will say my instinct on Juan Merchan and his Friday announcement is that he knows that a lot of this has backfired for his party and its cause. I think they went into this thinking they were going to diminish Trump and make it so that people thought he was toxic and they would not support him. They'd run away from him. But the reality of that trial in New York was every day when President Trump would step up to the microphone at both the beginning and the end of each day's court proceedings, he only became more popular in the eyes of the voters. People really did see that the left was out to get him, that this was a rigged system designed to crush its political opponent. And in his fight and in that very spectacular way, he's accrued more support onto himself. And my suspicion is that the left knows now, having lived through all of this, that actually throwing Donald Trump in prison, turning him into a true martyr, a political prisoner, will backfire on them in the election. How much do you think that factored into the judge's thinking?
I agree with you. I think that was part of it too. And I think there was an even bigger calculation there, and that is that House Republicans are investigating his daughter and his daughter's company, Authentic Campaigns, which, of course, I reported just this year. She has raked in $13 million just this year at the same time her father's presiding over that trial. He should have recused based on his daughter's political connections and lucrative Democratic consulting business. $13 million this year. Her co-founder, Mike Nellis, is the head of White Dudes for Harris, Kamala Harris. Lauren Merchant worked for the Kamala Harris presidential campaign back in 2020. She made $8 million this year from Adam Schiff in his Senate campaign. You cannot allow this. This is why he should have recused. He didn't. He a number of times denied this motion to recuse. But now House Republicans have sent letters to Lauren Merchant asking for more information about her clients, any use of the trial or the prosecution in any of the campaigns that she's working on. So this could be a little more CYA for Juan Merchan and maybe trying to protect his daughter from further investigations.
Let me go from here to this debate tomorrow night and get your thoughts on everything. But I do see that, one of the tactics that the left has here, insofar as they can convince anybody to vote for Kamala Harris, is that she's the prosecutor and Trump is the convicted felon. That's the frame that the left has been advancing. What do you make of that? First of all, as a political strategy, it's so brazen and over the top. What do you make of that, and will we see that tomorrow night?
That's an interesting question, Vince. There are reports out today that said that she was disappointed with the mics being off, of course, muted like they were with the Biden-Trump debate in June, that she wanted the mics on, not so Trump would interrupt her, so she could interrupt him and kind of revisit her long ago role as a prosecutor. I mean, she was in the U.S. Senate since 2016. She's been vice president. She hasn't been, trial prosecutor in at least a decade or so. But they have a problem because now they're trying to make it look like Donald Trump, if he gets into office, is going to use his DOJ to retaliate against his political opponents. Of course, that's what the Biden-Harris DOJ has been doing for 4 years, including Trump and all of his supporters. So that sort of approach is going to backfire as well, because you can't look like a prosecutor, call him a convicted felon, and sort of amplify the lawfare of the Biden-Harris regime while at the same time accusing your opponent of trying to do the same thing. So I'm not so sure that is going to be her approach going in tomorrow. But, this is going to, I just posted a piece right now, a dream piece for the moderators to finally ask her some questions about January 6th, which she has not been asked any questions about, an event she compares to 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. I would love to see David Muir ask her a question or two about that.
Yeah. Wasn't she in the vicinity of the so-called pipe bombs? How come she hasn't been playing that up on the campaign trail?
Yes, that is a question Darren Beatty and I have been asking for years. Why, when she was at the DNC, when this alleged pipe bomb was discovered shortly after 1 o'clock, and we were told by the FBI a viable device, it was deadly. It was suggested this was a MAGA person, a Trump supporter who planted that device. Why has she never talked about it? First of all, why was she at the DNC? She was a sitting U.S. senator. She was involved in the proceedings of January 6th. She was the first incoming, woman of color vice president ever. Why wasn't she there? Why'd she go to the DNC? How did her Secret Service detail, Capitol Police, D.C. Metro Police, and bomb-sniffing canines all miss this explosive device sitting right outside? We're told now she came within 20 feet of that bomb. She's never talked about it.
Yeah.
And never been asked about it.
No, it's bizarre. I mean, and that's the kind of thing, any of these Democrat politicians, they'd be leaning on as a basis for their existence as a politician. This is a part of her story, her rise, that she was subjected possibly to a terror attack and she overcame it. She doesn't use that at all. She doesn't do that at all. And it adds to the suspicion that whole pipe bomb component was just a hoax.
That's right. And was she part of what some speculate was Plan A, that they were going to evacuate the Capitol upon discovery of these pipe bombs at the DNC and RNC just a few blocks away from the Capitol, and that, oh my God, Kamala Harris was there too. We have to shut everything down. We have to evacuate. We have to find this bomber. She almost died. People around the RNC were almost blown up.
Right.
That was the original plan. But as things started to unfold, both organically and orchestrated, it looked like, that plan didn't really need to come to fruition.
Sure. So what other questions would you like to see her asked in this fantasy world where David Muir takes all of your advice?
I would like her confronted. On Wednesday is the 23-year anniversary of 9/11, and she has disgracefully compared January 6th to 9/11. I would love David Muir to say, please explain to the loved ones of the victims of 9/11, almost 3,000 people, how you can sit there to their face and say what happened on January 6th was as bad as what happened on 9/11. I would love for her to answer to the egregious double standard of justice by her and Joe Biden, Merrick Garland's DOJ, now closing in, Vince, on 1,500 January 6th defendants. They are arresting people every week, almost on a daily basis, as this prosecution continues nearly, 4 years later. How could she support BLM rioters but defend her DOJ continuing to round up mostly nonviolent misdemeanors for something that happened almost 4 years ago?
Also, if
so those are accusing.
And if January 6th was 9/11, then what was it when rioters burned down the 3rd Precinct in Minneapolis, and then you bailed them out? What was it when David Dorn was shot dead in the street? What was it when there was billions of dollars in damage, all those dozens of lives lost, and you were encouraging it? You were breathing life into that chaos. So if January 6th was 9/11, what would you call that? Because she was responsible for inflaming that disaster, that chaos.
Well, I mean, it was just a summer of love. I mean, let's not forget that's what it really was, despite what we could see before our eyes. But even bringing that in a little sharper focus, compare what happened in Washington, D.C. itself. The burning of St. John's Church, the attacks on federal police officers, Secret Service, and U.S. Park Police, destruction of monuments and federal property, the lockdown of the White House, forcing Donald Trump and his family to a secure location as rioters attempted and almost successfully breached the security fence around the White House. How is that? And all those cases have been dropped, Vince. All of those cases were dropped by the Biden-Harris Department of Justice. Not a single BLM 2020 rioter from D.C. is being prosecuted, let alone continue to be investigated. The entire event. And, of course, this went on for weeks and months in Washington. As you know, you're there. I mean, they were trying to assault lawmakers as they were leaving the White House in September of 2020. I mean, they almost knocked over Brian Mast, who is a double amputee war veteran, as they tried to surround him and his family. Rand Paul and his wife also attacked.
Yeah.
But all of that is forgotten. I would love for Kamala Harris to try to explain, defend her involvement in protecting BLM rioters, failing to prosecute them. Well, to this day, the ongoing J6 prosecution resulting in this egregious double standard of justice and destruction of people's lives.
I know. I still remember the inaugural riots when Trump was sworn in January 2017. As they were burning that limo out in front of the Washington Post, and I was actually standing at the corner of 14th and K as the riots were going on around me. It was madness, and that was the left doing what it does best, which is destroy. It's so wild and forgotten to history. We haven't generated a national holiday to commemorate it. Thank you, Julie Kelly, as always. Great to talk to you today. Let's take a phone call. I've got Donna calling in from Frederick now, line 1. Hello, Donna. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hello, Vince. It's so nice to hear you. Congrats on the eye surgery.
Thanks.
I'm a little chicken about it. My vision is probably like yours. I'm nearsighted, but I'm afraid if I did it, I'd have to wear reading glasses, that would make me crazy. So I don't know. I guess I'd need your doctor's advice.
Yeah, for sure. Dr. Holtzman's awesome. And I asked a lot of these questions because I had heard all these rumors. And what has changed, Donna, about LASIK surgery in particular through the years is, first of all, I always thought, like, as I waited and waited, I was like, that's fine. The longer I wait, the better the tech gets. Well, now we've had decades. There's no more waiting for me. And things have gotten a lot better. It's like a lot of the halos and the concerns, the night driving that people had before.
Remember
a lot
all
of that's
that?
a lot of that's a thing of the past. They've really fine-tuned it. Yeah.
Thank God. Well, Julie Kelly was phenomenal as always. And I want to say this. I've noticed a narrative shift from the left. They've decided, I think they obviously know that the tsunami of Americans who have woken up, it's not going to benefit them to try and jail Trump right now. So I'm hearing the Russia seeping into the narrative every which way. they're going to come in that way. They repeat themselves. They have to do the same methodology. And, and I expect that we'll likely see some sort of bizarre, chaotic events like we did, as Julie mentioned, the Summer of Love.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to mention that narrative seeding already that they're trying to put in place, because I don't think people have paid close enough attention.
I think you're on to what they're attempting, but it's not. I don't think it's very concentrated. I think they're literally throwing everything against the wall and hoping something sticks, because they're in a panic right now. More on that coming up.